Welcome to the next edition of Think Suburbia, the podcast of the Suburban Virginia Republican Coalition. I and my co-host Mary Campbell are really looking forward to another new candidate to interview. Mary is another one of the co-founders of SUVGOP, along with myself, Jill Cook, and Mary is my co-host for this episode. Mary, would you introduce our guest?
Yes, thank you, Jill. Today we are delighted to have with us Sarah White. Sarah is a small business owner who is running as a candidate in the House of Delegates, the 53rd District. So Sarah, welcome today, and we look forward to getting to know more about you as we move through this discussion.
Thank you so much, Mary and Jill. I'm very excited to be here with you.
Excellent. Well, first to our viewers, tell us a little bit about the 53rd District, a little bit about the geography, where it's located, some demographics, and then why you're running.
Absolutely. So I'm very thrilled to live in the 53rd District in Falls Church. We bought our first home here, my husband and I, after just falling in love with the place during a 4th of July event doing trivia last year. So we're very excited to be in the area. It's a very diverse area. So you see lots of different people and ages, and it's just a very unique place to live, I think, in the world in that way. That we kind of represent a little bit of everywhere. And, it is a suburb, but of course, being where we are, it's a very large city as well. So it's exciting to get the big world feel, but as you walk through the streets, everybody says hello, and people, you know your neighbors. And as a Southern girl myself at heart, I love that about Falls Church.
Just one quick question before we move on. Is Falls Church, is there a little bit of any other town, or is it all encompassed in Falls Church?
So it's going to run from the city of Falls Church all the way down to the Pan Am Shopping Center, where the Micro Center and Glory Days, those are. And it's going to be very thin through there. But as you come this direction, it runs over to the Orange Line Metro at Dunloring, which encompasses Lost Dog Cafe Dunloring, one of the stores that I run, and runs all the way down to Sweetwater Tavern and the shopping center there. So you can tell I map everything out by my favorite restaurants.
Sarah, we know that you are a small business owner. This past year has been especially difficult for all small businesses with the pandemic. Can you tell us a little bit about what impact the COVID and pandemic have had on you and how you have been able to work through and especially survive all of these challenges that have been placed on you as a small business owner?
Absolutely. So I can tell you that the biggest change in my life for policies that have come out during COVID or not come out that we've needed is that it prompted me to run for office. So that's going to be the biggest change. But we got a lot of rules that came out that we either didn't understand or weren't completely clear what we were being asked to do, causing us to lose a lot of revenue for overcompensating. We shut down more than we needed to when they limited people inside restaurants. We shut down more than we needed to for every time a rule came out, because we're rule followers at heart. We want to do what's going to be safe for everybody. We want to make sure that our staff and our community are protected. And so I know that ourselves, as well as some other restaurateurs, and I'm sure a lot of businesses, some of the jewelry stores I've spoken to and other places, weren't sure if they were even allowed to be open at times. And that just caused a serious loss of revenue that you can't get back, especially during a pandemic when sales are already lower. We lost valuable dollars. Every dollar really counted. And we just didn't understand what was being asked of us half of the time. A rule would come out on Friday, take effect on a Monday morning, and there was nobody in the office to answer us for Saturday and Sunday. So all we wanted to do was the right thing.
Right.
But what was the right thing? How could we abide by the rules that weren't really clear? And then you had a lot of rules that come out that we did understand, such as no more alcohol on a table after 10 o'clock. We all get that. But why? It didn't make things better for anyone. We would have people across the restaurant say, hey, did they just take your beer? Yeah, they took mine too. Do you live near here? I'm not done drinking. How about you? So now they're at someone's house with no masks on. They just met. And there's nobody to be there to say, hey, if you guys wouldn't mind being the 6 feet apart, we'd really appreciate that help from you. There was no chaperone, no monitor for that. And, it was rough to be that in the restaurant, but we would rather be that voice of reason to say, hey, let's just be safe about this. We'll turn the music down so that you guys can talk across the way if you'd like. Instead of, going to a house and we saw that where was the biggest spread? People at private parties, private events.
Yeah, well, that's something that not all of us think about with that kind of arbitrary rules. It seemed like there were several very arbitrary. It must have been so frustrating for you as a business owner to have to sort of second guess what's going to happen next. So let's hope we get rid of those policies pretty soon.
Right. Well, even in events. So some of the restaurants, one of my dear friends' restaurant went under because he has a lot of event space. And I mean, we're talking about a former Marine. This is his first restaurant. Super excited to be doing this in the community. He opened in February, unfortunately. We know that that was bad timing, but he has this big open space that can have beautiful events. You could have 25 people and a small wedding during COVID, and it would have been plenty of room to socially distance. And just across the border in Maryland, you would have been allowed to do that because of the space size. In Virginia, we were given no such luxury of saying, well, you have this many square feet, you can have this many people. It was just a blanket statement for a business.
And that is one really good reason to flip the House of Delegates. And leading into that, I mean, we can go back to the business aspect a little bit later, but your current representative there, Marcus Simon, tell us, what are some of the policies of his that you really want to overturn, whether he's done anything actually while he's been in the House of Delegates.
Well, and, there hasn't been a lot to look over as far as his legislation. But one of the things that he did bring up recently that have really been upset about, and as my representative, as living here, not just my opponent, this has nothing to do with being my opponent. It has to do with being my representative, is that he wanted everyone to continue to work from home even after the pandemic and no longer go to Richmond. But there's a value to looking someone in the face when you're negotiating policy. There's a value to seeing what lobbyists are there speaking to what representatives. And there's just a transparency of having it in Richmond that makes us feel good about our government and seeing them work for us and being able to go to their office. I loved knowing the administrative assistants in the office when I would go to Richmond and say, hey, do they have 5 minutes? I have something I need to discuss. Well, you can't do that at their home. I'm not going to knock on someone's door and say, may I speak with the representative that lives in your home? So I'm very upset about the fact that he would even propose that.
I agree with you. Constituents. I mean, Mary and I are members of the Virginia Federation of Republican Women, and we go down on lobby day and we get to go visit because we're the constituents. So totally get your point there. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Absolutely. I will fight to always drive to Richmond. And you know what? If Mr. Simon doesn't want to make the drive, I'm happy to do it.
Thank you. Sarah, as you know, the SUVGOP is a suburban group. How much of your district is suburban, and what issues do you see facing the suburbs today?
Absolutely. So our district, it is a suburb. We definitely are outside of DC. We're a ways from Richmond. We are that suburban community, that local small town feeling in a large city. There's a lot of people here, but it still has that quality to it. And I think that we face the same thing that suburbs across the country face. And that's, we want to feel safe. It doesn't matter who you are. When you walk down the road, you want to feel safe in your neighborhood. And we really feel that here. And I want to continue to see that. I think that we have some of the best police in the country. Might be biased, but I think they're fantastic. And they do a lot to make sure that they are protecting and serving the way that police officers are supposed to. And they should have our support for that. We also need to get our schools open and figure out how to make up education for our children from the last year. Skipping over that and acting like it didn't happen is not a solution. Our children are being done a disservice by not being in classrooms for as long as they were. And now by just saying, oh, we're just going to move forward. Well, move forward from what? They lost an entire year of education. And, I don't have children myself, but I do employ a lot of people looking for their first job when they're 16, 17, 18. And being in the small business world, I would like it if they feel comfortable making change and being around other people and knowing how to, just make business work on an entry level. And right now, our children that didn't get the socialization that they would normally get, that didn't get the education that they would normally get, are going to struggle walking into a business for the first time to get their first job. And I'll do everything I can to help them catch up on my end, but we need our legislation to do everything they can on theirs to help our children as well. So I think that in our suburb, we're facing the exact same thing that most people are.
That's a really excellent point. I hadn't thought about, I mean, you think about them being behind in education, but the socialization skills for entry level jobs like that,
Right.
a greeter, a hostess. I mean, how do you do that when you've been isolated for a year?
It's difficult. It's not an easy transition to make. I know my nieces, for instance, were being homeschooled not by choice, but because they had to be this past year. And the youngest one, who has always been a huge fan of school and loves to meet new people, she's a bit like her aunt. She was terrified and cried the first day that she had to go back because she was so afraid to leave the house. And that's so unfair to our children.
Absolutely.
Yeah, putting the fear in kids like that is one of, I think, the collateral damage. When I go for a run and I see a family with kids and the parent puts the kid like this away from me just because there's another human being, it's really very disturbing to see that. So,
well, it's a very different feel. Remember when you wouldn't have crossed the road passing somebody before because it would have been considered rude? You don't switch sides of the road. You say hello. You're very friendly. And now it's almost considered rude not to cross the road. And I'm all about distance, but don't think I'm not still going to try to say hi to you. So if you see me, please say hi back.
Excellent. Anything specific to the 53rd district that we haven't discussed that maybe is special to that area? I mean, you are a city within a sort of a bigger city. So,
right. Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, I think that a lot of us are in the same boat at this point. I think that this pandemic has been the great equalizer across the state of Virginia. So I think that we're all in the same boat. Whereas, years past, we might have talked about budgets. We might have talked about different laws or different rules and how they were going to affect us. And this year, everybody's in the same boat. It's been a very equal playing field at this point for what do we do moving forward. And, I don't like to separate us out as being any different from the rest of Virginia at this point. I think we have to team up, fight together, and get our state back to where it should be as the shining Virginia that we all know and love and are proud to be a part of. We've struggled with that over the last year. And I want to get that pride back, our schools being the top schools and our communities being the top communities. So any way that we can work together to make that happen. I will not separate Falls Church from the rest. Yes, I will speak for Falls Church. I will fight for us and the surrounding area, but I really want to be a team player and make sure that Virginia is successful.
Sarah, as we wrap up today, we always like to give our guests the opportunity to tell us something about themselves. Is there anything that you would like to share with us that maybe we haven't already talked about today?
All right, so you may have guessed with me working at Lost Star Cafe that I am a huge pet lover. I unfortunately am on the go most of the time, so I do not get to have a dog because they wouldn't get the attention they need. And my cats, when I walk in, are like, "Oh, great, you're home." The food bowl's empty. So that's, so I love animals. And if I see you on the street and start petting your dog, please ignore that. I'm a huge pet lover. I also, this is going to be controversial, so I'm just going to throw it out there that I'm a Pittsburgh Penguins hockey fan, though I will say I love our Caps very much. I've had the honor of running into some of the players who have eaten at my restaurants and other things, and I'm quickly being a convert, so don't tell my Pittsburgh friends that. But that's my controversy for today, is that I'm just a huge hockey fan and support more than one team who may be in the same league. So
I think you'll be fine. I don't think they'll hold that against you.
My secret's safe with SUVGOP.
That's right.
So did you grow up in Pittsburgh or the area?
I grew up in West Virginia. So I was 3 hours south of Pittsburgh, which was our closest pro team. And I was 2 hours from Columbus, who at the time were Columbus Chill. And I watched most of their games. They were an AHL team. And now they have a pro team also. So Columbus Blue Jackets are also, it's painful. Sometimes I have to just turn the TV off and hope that, the best team wins today. I have a hierarchy. There are teams that I want beat, but in general, there's a lot of teams I just really want to see do well. I'm a huge fan of goalies. So I like it when it's low scoring games, and they had a great game.
There you go. That's so interesting because I grew up in a huge sports fan family, New England. So it's Red Sox and, Patriots and all that. But
Right.
Virginia has no pro sports team. Virginia, DC, we're close, but Virginia does not. Maybe you could do something about that when you're in the legislature.
I will put it on my to-do list. Absolutely.
Sarah, we are so delighted to have you with us today. You are such a breath of fresh air and such an inspiring candidate. So we at the SUVGOP wish you the very best. We look forward to helping you over the upcoming months. So good luck.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Yes.
Sarah, one quick thing though, before we wrap up, we're going to ask about your website and all. So the Lost Dog Cafe, if you want to put a pitch in there for it, I love your sandwiches. There's one here in McLean where I live. That started out as a joint effort do you donate some time or something to shelters? It's some kind of connection there.
Yeah, so there's Lost Dog and Cat Rescue Shelter, which is located in 7 Corners. And then there's the restaurants that we have 5 locally. I run 3 of them. And a portion of everything that you spend at our restaurants goes to the rescue to help take care of animals. We also often work with a local brewery to have a collaboration beer that we call our Rescue Ale or Rescue IPA or whatever it happens to be. And $1 from each one of those beers goes directly to the rescue. So we like to do a lot of other pop-up events. We'll have, especially when it's not COVID, the animals over to the location where you can come and do an adoption straight from the restaurant outside on the patio. And it's just a great collaboration that we have between the two. Our original owner, Pam McGowie, has a huge heart for animals and just really based her life around great food and caring for the animals that couldn't take care of themselves. She even rescued a donkey a couple of weeks ago. Like, that's very much her. She loves animals, has a farm out in Herndon, and she's just a wonderful person. If you get the chance to get to know her and come out and have a sandwich, take care of your family, we'll give you some great service, great food, and then we'll donate to the rescue on your behalf.
So, and on a small business person who gives back to the community in a very real way, what a perfect candidate.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So again, thank you. And would you like to tell us if someone wanted to get involved in your campaign, how they would do that? And we can see your website there, but if you want to say it.
Absolutely. So Sarah, SARAH, the number 4 VA.com. If you go there, you're going to see where you can get involved, where you can get my newsletter each week to talk about what we're doing, a place to contribute. If you don't have the time to volunteer but still want to help out, definitely donations appreciated. So come in, see what we're doing, and jump into the first event we get to have in person, which should be coming up here shortly. Check the website for details.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Wonderful. Thank you. And that's this edition of Think Suburbia, a podcast of the Suburban Virginia Republican Coalition. You can go to our website, SUVGOP.com, go to the drop-down menu and see all the podcasts we have there in our library. We have done many, many candidate and issues podcasts over the last couple of years, and we're happy that Sarah is our newest addition. So please check it all out. See you next time.